Tsukune Ano is a virgin loser. He is a high school student who struggles in his classes and ends up in a school for monsters by mistake. There, he meets many monster girls, and almost gets into trouble but is rescued by a vampire girl who develops feelings for him. It all begins when his father discovers a random packet on the streets, and he gets enrolled in a private school called Yakai Academy. On his way there, the bus driver warns him to be cautious. As they pass through a tunnel, the scary-looking driver tells them that all connections are lost. I think guys, this driver takes them to hell. Sukyun starts walking and suddenly a bitch crashes her bicycle into him. Leave a comment guys if you are also think girl cannot drive, and her skirt flutters up, giving him a quick peek to our virgin loser. Sukyun ends up with a nosebleed, and for some reason, the girl is very interested in him. She's attracted to his scent and bites him, revealing that she's a vampire. She then asks Sukyun what he thinks of vampires, and he says he doesn't mind them. Hearing this, the girl gets excited and asks if he'll be her friend, introducing herself as Mocha. In the homeroom, the teacher Shizuka Nekonome introduces herself to Sukyun, almost making him scared. She explains that Yakai is a school only for monsters because humans dominate Earth, so monsters have to disguise themselves and live among humans. One student, Seizu, says he'd prefer to eat humans instead. Ms. Nekonome reminds him about the anti-human barrier around the school, which means any human who enters will be killed. Sukyun feels scared for his life. Seizu notices Sukyun's fear, but then Mocha arrives, and all the boys in the class are drawn to her. When Mocha sees Sukyun, she immediately jumps and hugs him, sticking to his side, leaving all shocked. They have a slightly awkward romantic moment at a vending machine. But Mocha gets shy and accidentally pushes Sukyun into a post. Later, when they sit down, Seizu interrupts and tries to flirt with Mocha, but she rejects him. Mocha then shows Sukyun her Rosario, explaining that if it comes off, she'll turn into a powerful and scary vampire. However, Sukyun believes she'll still be the same person. Mocha happily hugs him, revealing that he's the first person she's ever sucked blood from. She's about to kiss him again, but Sukyun, feeling awkward, runs away. I think guys, if he does not change, he's still virgin his whole life. The guy starts gathering his things to leave, but Mocha catches him and tries to convince him to stay for his own safety. Sukyun decides to confess that he's a human and yells at her before running away. Just then, Sukyun hears Mocha scream and rushes back to find Seizu knocking him down while Mocha runs to Sukyun apologizing and explaining that she just wanted a friend. Regardless of whether they're human or monster, Sukyun gives in and admits he really likes her. Suddenly, Seizu knocks Sukyun down again, but Sukyun tears off Mocha's Rosario, revealing her true form as an S-class vampire. Her intense gaze alone scares Seizu away, and Mocha knocks him out. She then walks over to Sukyun as he collapses in her arms, and he wakes up to realize he's stuck there for at least a month. Thankfully, students get their own rooms in the dorms, and Sukyun wakes up one morning to find 3 boys jealous and drooling over Mocha. They've heard that despite appearing weak, Sukyun had beaten Seizu. Anyway, Mocha tells Sukyun that he can ask her for anything since he's a human. Sukyun thanks her, but then Mocha suddenly passes out. She explains that she felt dizzy because she hadn't eaten breakfast, so she literally bites and feeds from Sukyun like he's a buffet, which freaks him out and sends him screaming away to the pond. Sukyun checks his neck and notices a girl has collapsed nearby. She asks him to help her up and inadvertently squishes her large breasts against him. Sukyun, being virgin loser, he feels embarrassed but agrees to help her to the nursing office. It turns out she's in the same class as him, and she falls forward again in pain. She complains about her breasts being cramped, and she starts rubbing herself, causing Sukyun to feel awkward. She introduces herself as Kirumu and immediately captivates Sukyun. Just then, Mocha arrives to find Kirumu walking off with Sukyun. She tries to stop Sukyun, but he rudely shakes her off. In class, Sukyun finally breaks free from Kirumu's spell and is confused as Mocha and Kirumu glare at each other. After class, Kirumu introduces herself to Mocha, revealing that she's a succubus monster and plans to charm all the boys to be her personal harem. Sukyun finds them and tries to apologize to Mocha, but Kirumu hypnotizes him. Later, in the nurse's office, Kirumu decides to permanently put Sukyun under her spell and hugs him, preparing to give him a kiss. Meanwhile, Mocha feels sad, but her inner voice from the Rosario warns that Sukyun fell victim to succubus charm and his life might be in danger. Back in the nurse's office, Kirumu pins Sukyun down, about to give him a fatal kiss, but he breaks free and hugs Kirumu instead. She becomes frantic, asking Sukyun if he wants Mocha more than her. Once she realizes she's defeated, Kirumu decides to kill Sukyun and transforms into her true form. But Sukyun completely panics and freezes up. Luckily, Mocha arrives and pushes Kirimu out the window. She explains to Tsukyun that Kirimu is a succubus who can mesmerize men just by looking at them, which helps Tsukyun realize why he was acting rudely before. Kirimu then drags Tsukyun and Mocha outside, where she grows out her sharp nails and easily cuts through trees. Mocha desperately pleads with Kirimu to spare Tsukyun's life. Fortunately, Tsukyun manages to pull out Mocha's Rosario, causing her to transform again. Like Seo, Kirimu becomes terrified and desperately explains that very few succubi are left, and she needs to find her mate to continue her species. Mocha finds her selfish and kicks her through the trees. Kirimu finally agrees to stop, but Mocha doesn't want to take any chances and decides to cut off Kirimu's wings. However, Tsukyun steps in front of Mocha and stops her. Inner Mocha then explains that she only saved him for his blood before sealing away. One day, Tsukyun meets Mocha outside the pool and apologizes for not considering her feelings. He even decides to leave the swim club and, following Miss Nekanome's recommendation, joins the newspaper club with Mocha, Yukari, and Kirimu. The next day, Tsukyun is overwhelmed by attention from girls, but he passes out from anemia and lack of oxygen due to excessive hugging. The group is surprised to find themselves the only members of the club until Miss Nekanome introduces a young man named Jin as the club president. Jin explains that the newspaper club involves risking oneself to get a story. Kirimu remembers about the people haunting Yakai, and they start putting up flyers asking for information. Yukari offers to help, but Jin rudely dismisses her because of her size. Soon, Tsukyun catches the culprit looking up girls' skirts, but Jin blames Tsukyun instead. Tsukyun gets slapped, and Mocha angrily leaves. In the restroom, Mocha wonders if Tsukyun really peeked at her, and her inner self warns her to be careful around Jin. The next day, Jin is spying on two girls changing in the locker room and overhears them talking about Tsukyun and Mocha being a couple. This gives him a nasty idea. Tsukyun tries to defend himself to Mocha and Kirimu but fails. Seeing this, Jin seizes his opportunity and offers to help Tsukyun. He leads Tsukyun outside and tells him to look into a window, which turns out to be the girls' locker room. Suddenly, Jin takes a picture and threatens to show it to Mocha if Tsukyun exposes him. He leaves Tsukyun to get in trouble with the angry girls. The news reaches Yukari and Kirimu, but they decide to investigate themselves. That night, Jin visits Mocha and tries to kiss her. When Mocha pushes him away, he shows her the picture. Mocha is shocked, but fortunately Kirimu and Yukari show up and point out evidence that Jin is the real culprit. Jin is taken aback and accidentally drops more pictures he took while spying. His cover is blown, and he transforms into his werewolf form, attacking Mocha. Just as Jin is about to overpower her, Tsukyun arrives and removes Mocha's Rosario. Jin is amazed by Mocha's beautiful monster form but decides to dominate her. Unfortunately, the full moon gives him extra strength, but when it hides behind the clouds, Mocha kicks him into the rails, sending him falling over the edge. The next day, the newspaper club puts out flyers exposing Jin's true nature, and Tsukyun tries to talk to Mocha, but she kicks him in the face when he almost looks at her otherworldly side. The group decides to celebrate, but they suddenly notice a strange girl. She asks for a newspaper, and Tsukyun gives her one. Later, she shows up in class, and Miss Nekanome introduces her as Mizore Shirayuki. At the pond, Tsukyun tries to escape from Shirayuki, but she grabs him. She starts scaring Tsukyun, insisting that he belongs to her alone. Meanwhile, a puppet version of Shirayuki shows up at the newspaper club and tries to harm Mocha out of jealousy. Poor Mocha screams for Tsukyun, but he's frozen under the pond. It's revealed that Shirayuki is a snow fairy who is incredibly lonely. The real Shirayuki then tries to keep Tsukyun all to herself. Suddenly, Mocha arrives, carried by Kirimu. They have managed to defeat Shirayuki's puppet and crash right into Tsukyun, freeing him from the ice and making Shirayuki go crazy. Later, Mr. Katsubo finds Shirayuki crying. Meanwhile, back in the newspaper club room, Mocha, Tsukyun, and Kirimu warm up. Suddenly, they find Miss Nekanome in a panic, saying that Shirayuki is in big trouble. It turns out Mr. Katsubo has been hospitalized because of Shirayuki, and Miss Ririko tells them that she'll be expelled once found. Tsukyun feels responsible, so the group heads out to find her. On their way, they pass by Jin, who strangely tells them he has photos of an awesome new story. Meanwhile, Shirayuki is looking out to the ocean when Tsukyun arrives. He tells her that if she comes with him and apologizes right away, she won't get expelled. Shirayuki becomes hysterical, telling Tsukyun that she thought he would be the one who understood her, but now she feels like no one will ever understand her. Just then, Mocha, Kirimu, and Yukari arrive, showing Tsukyun Jin's photos. It turns out Mr. Katsubo was the one who attacked Shirayuki. Tsukyun now feels terrible as Shirayuki slowly gets worse, laughing and crying as ice puppets emerge. Suddenly, Shirayuki almost falls off the cliff, but Tsukyun grabs her, saying he wants to be her friend. However, he accidentally pulls off Mocha's Rosario, and Mocha's inner self emerges, clearing up the rest of the ice puppets. Mocha then pulls Tsukyun and Shirayuki up and tells Shirayuki to try living, just as she passes out. Later on, Shirayuki shows up to the club with a new haircut as a sign of rebirth, and Tsukyun thanks Jin for taking the picture. However, Jin ends up exposing his work once again, and the girls totally pound on him. Just as Mocha goes for a quick bite, one day Miss Ririko is walking around, flashing the boys her killer looks during math class. She scolds Tsukyun and reminds him that the final exams are coming up. So, he asks Mocha to tutor him. She asks Tsukyun to come to her dorm room, but he low-key freaks out, knowing his mind won't let him focus with Mocha alone. Just then, Kirumu barges in, offering her help as well, followed by Yukari. Even Shirayuki appears, asking for some study help. So, Mocha announces a group study. They gather in the club, but each of them is busy doing their own thing while Yukari lectures. Mocha offers her notes to Tsukyun, making Kirumu interrupt and ask Tsukyun to tutor her instead. That day, Mocha and Tsukyun run into Miss Ririko and tell her they have been studying. Strangely, she sort of encourages them not to study, explaining that only teachers are capable of teaching a subject, not students. She then tells Tsukyun to meet her for a tutoring lesson. The following day, Tsukyun tells everyone about it and starts daydreaming about the girls in swim costume. He tells Mocha that he'll pass so they can do fun during summer break. Tsukyun then goes to the Miss Ririko for some private lesson. Comment guys if you also want private lessons. The next day, the girls bump into Tsukyun, who is weirdly mumbling math formulas. He then runs into Mocha, and she immediately realizes something is wrong. However, Miss Ririko shows up, accusing Mocha of being the reason Tsukyun can't focus, and takes him away to continue her classes. However, while in class, Tsukyun mumbles about Mocha, making the teacher knock him down. She tells him that he should try harder to study because his human scent gets her worked up to teach. However, Mocha hears Tsukyun's screams and runs over to find that Miss Ririko is a Lamia who is using her charm to keep Tsukyun fixated on studies. Miss Ririko angrily calls Mocha a pest and knocks her outside. But Shirayuki pops in from the ceiling and blasts her with cold air. However, Mizore knocks down candles and blocks her from helping. She then pins poor Mocha, making her notes fall. However, the sight of them pulls Tsukyun out of his trance, and he pulls off Mocha's Rosario, releasing inner Mocha. Miss Ririko tells Mocha that she's a bad student, but inner Mocha casually says that she'll be teaching Miss Ririko her place. With that, Shirayuki freezes the teacher solid. Soon, the finals are here, and Tsukyun is stressing out. However, he thanks Mocha for tutoring him, and she bites him happily. Later, one day, Tsukyun is waiting at the bus stop for their club trip to the human world when Mocha arrives, looking totally cute. Mocha reminds Tsukyun that she used to live in the human world, making him a bit worried. But she's more excited than scared. The two almost kiss, but thanks to Kirumu, the duo ends up missing the smooch. Soon, Miss Nekonome arrives with the bus, and Tsukyun finally feels back at home, almost making everyone suspicious of him. However, Mocha covers for him, saying that Tsukyun used to live in the human world before going to Yakai Academy. However, Yukari seems rather suspicious. They soon reach the beach, and everyone plays ball. Yukari grabs the opportunity and asks Tsukyun if he's really not afraid of the human world. Tsukyun says he finds Yakai Academy way scarier. Just then, Mocha dives, getting sand in her swimsuit, and Tsukyun literally drools with thoughts. A shot from Shirayuki wakes him up. Kirumu then comments that she thought Tsukyun was a human, making Mocha and Tsukyun a bit alarmed. But luckily Mocha changes the subject, as Kirumu and Yukari get in a fight over the ball. Later, Tsukyun and Mocha once again miss the kiss when Kirumu calls them into the water. Tsukyun tries to get Mocha to come along but remembers vampires can't go in water and decides to stay with her. The two try their kiss attempt number 3, only for Kirumu to yell at Mocha to stop sucking Tsukyun's blood. Cherry on top, Kirumu, Yukari, and Shirayuki get in an argument over who would care if Tsukyun collapses from blood loss. Tsukyun happily laughs at their childishness when suddenly he notices a field of sunflowers nearby. A couple has arrived on the same hill, and Yukari notices them talking about people going missing there. Shirayuki thinks the couple was accusing witches of kidnapping people, making Yukari snap back and say she dislikes succubus whose only feature is being a stupid Rizzler. Kirumu is embarrassed, and Yukari drops a tub on her. The rest of the club finds the two mid-arguments, but ultimately the group heads back to the beach. However, once they leave, a strange girl appears out of the flower field. Meanwhile, Miss Nekonome heads out to catch some fish, while Sukyun helps move the cooler, and Mocha cuts vegetables. Poor Yukari keeps offering help but is turned down by everyone. She ends up outside and notices her presence back on the hill. She goes to investigate and meets the same strange girl named Ruby. Ruby is a witch and asks Yukari if they can be friends before strangely hugging her. Back on the beach, Sukyun notices that Yukari has disappeared while Ruby tells Yukari about how witches have lived on the hill for generations and that her ladyship will soon pass a plan to wipe out humans to protect it. Just then, Sukyun shows up and Ruby assumes he'll spoil the witch hill. She immediately summons monster plants to kill him. However, Yukari slays them, telling Ruby that she won't let her kill one of her friends. Ruby snaps, tying up Yukari and having more plant monsters try to eat Sukyun. Luckily, the rest of the group arrives and slashes them down. Yukari then apologizes to Ruby, saying they can't be friends. That's when Mocha realizes it's her sweet chance to hog the kiss when suddenly Ruby seriously slashes Sukyun. And jealous, he literally passes out, panicking Mocha to burst and unseal inner Mocha. Yukari is horrified, asking Ruby what she's done, and turns to find Shirayuki freezing everything around her as Kirumu transforms and flies at Ruby. Soon, Ruby wakes up in the group's tent. She tries to attack but stops when Sukyun holds out a can of tea for her. Sukyun explains that they only want to hear her story and learn the past of Witch Hill. Turns out Ruby and her ladyship have only been attacking humans to protect their home, and so Mocha suggests that Ruby should come to Yakai Academy. They low-key touch Ruby with their kindness, and she begins easing up once all of them are as Ruby sneaks out thinking about the news club. However, she feels that it's too late to change and flies back to Witch Hill. There, she tries to talk to her ladyship about what she just experienced, but the ladyship punishes her instead. Soon, the group notices that Ruby has gone missing and races back to Witch Hill only to get caught in vines controlled by Ruby. She has turned into a maniac and tells them to leave Witch Hill. Sukyun desperately tries reasoning, but Ruby just orders the plants to eat the group. Luckily, Kirumu and Yukari manage to free themselves and fight off the killer plant. Shirayuki breaks free too and saves Sukyun by freezing the monster plant solid. That's when he realizes that Mocha has been unable to free herself from the vines and runs after her. Unfortunately, Ruby buries him in Mocha and a sea of plant monsters, but Sukyun manages to snatch the Rosario off, and the energy from Mocha's transformation turns the plants into trash. Inner Mocha thanks Sukyun for saving her and pounces at Ruby, who brings the monster plants back to life and merges them into bigger ones. Suddenly, Sukyun realizes that her ladyship must be in the house on the other side of the hill. Fortunately, Mocha manages to free him. Yukari, Kirumu, and Shirayuki team up to clear a path for him, and eventually, he reaches the house. There, he traces the routes to her ladyship's room, but the old witch remains silent, sensing something amiss. Sukyun cautiously approaches and catches a terrifying glimpse in the mirror. Meanwhile, outside, Yukari notices Ruby has Mocha tied upside down. Just then, Sukyun arrives, revealing that her ladyship has long been deceased. It turns out that Ruby has been in denial and is grieving the loss of her mentor's body. In a flashback, Ruby witnesses her ladyship passing away after abandoning her plan. Ruby descends further into madness and merges with the plant monsters. Now, the only solution is to defeat her. However, poor Mocha becomes trapped in vines and is fused with Ruby, becoming her slave. Yukari tells Shirayuki and Kirumu that they have to destroy Ruby's wand to defeat her, and manages to blind Ruby. This allows Mocha to regain control. Yukari begs her to try not to kill Ruby, and Mocha agrees to do what she can. Finally, she dive kicks Ruby's wand, shattering it and causing an explosion that consumes Ruby as she recalls her happy childhood. The next day, the whole group is devastated, but then Jin shows up with Ruby sleeping like a baby in his arms. He found her floating in the ocean, and thankfully, Ruby looks well. Soon, the news club prints out their new additions, including their adventure at Witch Hill and Kirumu's jokes. She seems really passionate about the paper, and the group then hands out the newspapers, only to find 3 girls handing out their own called the Yakai Square. Kirumu is totally pissed and yells at them. However, a student named Kato walks up and introduces herself as the Super Newspaper Club president. Her paper is way more popular, and the students ignore all other papers, saying that they have no spicy swimsuit photos like the Super Newspaper Club. The group even learns that the school is planning to scrap clubs with the least popularity. Hearing this, Kirumu gets dead serious about getting as many readers as possible. Meanwhile, Jin is out peeking at women when he sees the Super Newspaper Club walking into the security committee office. The next day, Kirumu dresses up Yukari in a maid outfit to sell their paper. She even hands out cookies to those who sign up for the Yakai Gazette, only to end up losing when the Super Newspaper Club shamelessly attracts readers with spicy pictures. Later on, Sukyun and Mocha arrive with Jin. He tells them not to mess with the Super Newspaper Club, revealing that they have the security committee's support, and the committee is super violent. Jin is so scared that he orders everyone to burn the papers. They have no choice but to obey, but Kirumu is in no mood to give up. Just then, the Super Newspaper Club trio shows up, threatening them. Sukyun and Kirumu are shocked to see Kato behind the whole ordeal. She literally tosses their papers into the incinerator, and when Sukyun desperately tries helping Kirumu, Kato hangs him up with her silk. She rips off her uniform, revealing to be one of the security committee, and transforms into a spider woman. Poor Kirumu is trapped in Kato's web and is about to get injected with venom when Shirayuki shows up and attacks Kato. She misses Kato's counterattack just as Mocha and Yukari run in as well. Mocha immediately jumps up to reach Sukyun, and he swiftly removes the Rosario. With that, inner Mocha is released, and she frees Sukyun but leaves Kirumu. Annoyed, Kirumu frees herself, making Kato totally lose it and grab Mocha's arm. However, the crazy woman is far weaker than inner Mocha and literally gets kicked. Kirumu then blesses her with another kick and knocks her into her own web. In the end, Sukyun decides to expose the committee for being corrupt jerks, and thankfully, everyone agrees with him. However, Kuyo, the committee's head, learns of Kato's defeat and realizes that everyone's monster identity is listed except for Sukyun. He then burns the files with an evil smirk. Meanwhile, Sukyun's group begins gathering photographic evidence of the committee's corrupt ways, but they also need eyewitnesses. Thanks to Shirayuki, she has managed to stalk the fan club. However, when they go to question them, they find that the committee literally took them away. The next day, Mocha finds Sukyun tired. He notices that Mocha is intoxicated by his scent and even leans in for her to take a bite. But Kirumu shows up, kicking the vampy lady down, saying he needs to retain his strength. Later on, Jin notices the security committee walking towards Ms. Nekonome's classroom where Kuyo literally blurts out that Sukyun is suspected to be a human. Everyone is totally shocked, and once the committee tries taking them away, Yukari desperately tries to free them. However, Jin stops her, saying that she cannot do anything on her own. At the committee's headquarters, Sukyun has shown recordings of Seizu, Mr. Katsubo, Ms. Ririko, and several other students giving confirmation of him being human. Turns out even Kirumu and Shirayuki were questioned, but they strongly defended Sukyun. The committee also points out that vampires love human blood and Mocha seems to be chugging it. Mocha desperately tries to defend Sukyun, but the interrogator is fed up and threatens her with pure water. This makes Sukyun seriously angry, and he demands Kuyo to let Mocha go. However, Kuyo casually threatens to throw Mocha into the pond and reveals that the fan club is there as well. He explains that they told him that Sukyun is a weak, worthless idiot. Kuyo then pins Sukyun and tells him to change into a monster and free himself, with Mocha's screams of pain ringing in his ears. Sukyun decides to tell the truth and finally admits to being human. Kuyo laughs and snaps his fingers to reveal Mocha, Kirumu, and Shirayuki. Kirumu and Shirayuki are shocked, while Mocha cries that Sukyun shouldn't have told them the truth. Realizing that Mocha knew the truth, Kirumu slaps her, giving Kuyo a fun show. Kuyo then tells his men to lock Mocha up and then turns to Sukyun, saying that he'll be put to death. Meanwhile, Kirumu and Shirayuki return to the news club, informing Jin and Yukari that Sukyun is a human. Shirayuki leaves without a word. Kirumu wonders what Yukari thinks of humans, but before Yukari could answer, Kuyo's voice comes over the speaker. He announces that Sukyun is a human and that he will be put to death. A large crowd forms and yells excitedly. However, two students agree that the committee is taking things way too far, only to get knocked by the committee member. Poor Miss Nekonome is horrified, but Mr. Katsubo is actually having fun. Back in the club, Yukari is horrified by the news. She desperately tells Kirumu that they have to do something, but Kirumu only cries, yelling insults about Sukyun and Mocha. Outside, Sukyun is finally displayed, and Mocha can hear everything from her cell below. Poor Sukyun makes his last wish and asks Kuyo to spare the rest of the newspaper club. However, while the worthless human is getting ice, Shirayuki recalls Sukyun saving her when suddenly a strange bird tells her that it's her turn to do the saving. Meanwhile, Yukari is trying to convince Kirumu, but she yells, saying Tsukyun and Mocha should have trusted them to tell the secret. Suddenly, the same bird appears, asking them to say that to Mocha and Tsukyun's face. Back in the cell, poor Mocha helplessly cries, and inner Mocha tells her that she is not alone and wants to save Tsukyun. Just then, the bird arrives there as well and bends the bars of the cell. Mocha steps out and is shocked to see the bird turn into Ruby. She's brought the whole gang with her, and Kirumu slaps Mocha, saying they have to hurry and save the useless human. Outside, Kuyo is literally about to behead Tsukyun. But luckily, Shirayuki puts out the flames just as Ruby and Kirumu fly down to free Tsukyun and run away. Shirayuki, Mocha, and Yukari stay back to handle the fight. Kuyo asks if the girls know that they've committed a crime against the academy. Shirayuki, Mocha, and Kirumu tell him that it doesn't matter as long as they saved Tsukyun. Kuyo then reveals that Jin said something similar last year, and so he literally killed the whole club except Jin. Kuyo then orders his top 3 minions to kill them as punishment. With that, Yukari and Shirayuki engage in an amazing battle, giving the crowd a killer show. However, Kuyo looks up and leaves to chase after Tsukyun. Yukari yells for Shirayuki and Mocha to help Tsukyun, but Shirayuki yells for Mocha to go alone. By now, Tsukyun is on the rooftop and thanks Kirumu and Ruby for saving him just as Mocha runs up to him. Tsukyun is happy to be reunited, but his joy is spoiled when Kuyo shows up, saying that Tsukyun is going to die. Suddenly, an arrow of fire pierces Tsukyun's heart, much to everyone's horror. He burns badly, and poor Tsukyun weakly tells Mocha he has no regrets about coming to Yakai Academy, and asks her to protect their friends from Kuyo before pulling off the Rosario. Thinking that Tsukyun is dead, Mocha screams like a maniac, and inner Mocha takes over. Kuyo is impressed just as Shirayuki and Yukari arrive, and become horrified seeing Tsukyun. But Tsukyun is still clinging to life, and so Mocha decides to give Tsukyun some of her vampire blood. Ruby agrees, saying that vampires have incredible healing powers. However, they must be quick because Kuyo has transformed into a 4-tailed fox. He fires a blast at them when suddenly Jin shows up, taking the hit and calling them idiots for just standing there. With that, Shirayuki fires icicles at Kuyo, but he easily melts them before sending her flying with a fire blast to buy time for Ruby and Yukari. Kirumu flies around, dodging Kuyo's fire, while Ruby and Yukari release a blast of tarot cards at Kuyo. However, he easily destroys the familiars. Ruby isn't done yet, and the remains of the familiars join together into a big crow that pecks Kuyo's right eye. Kuyo then transforms into his ultimate battle form and beats everyone down except Mocha. Sadly, Mocha's attacks aren't affecting Kuyo, and she realizes that giving up so much of her blood has affected her superhuman strength. Kuyo then blasts at Mocha, seemingly killing her. However, Kirumu points to the top of the roof, where Tsukyun is holding Mocha. He had subconsciously sensed danger and saved the vampire. Kuyo tries attacking, but a transformed Jan grabs him, and with a jump kick, Mocha hammers Kuyo into the room below. Just then, the whole school pours in to find Mocha in her human form and Tsukyun all tattered. They end up believing that the stupid human defeated Kuyo and that he's not really a human. Even Nekonom agrees, and some students apologize for their cruel behavior towards Tsukyun, while others are happy at Kuyo's defeat. Soon, the group is treated, and Mocha and Shirayuki are hospitalized. Hamu also tells Tsukyun everything, and he's extremely grateful to Mocha. Once she wakes up, Tsukyun thanks her with a bouquet. That's when Tsukyun feels his heart beating fast and realizes that he's falling for both Mochas. Mocha blushes, and Tsukyun leans in for a kiss, but Shirayuki barges in with the girls, and the whole bunch of them demands to be smooched. One morning, Tsukyun is riding his bike to school when he meets up with Mocha. The two fall over and almost kiss when suddenly inner Mocha kicks him, waking Tsukyun up from his dream. With that, Tsukyun starts another year at Yakai Academy and runs off to school, ignoring his cousin Kyoko on the way. While walking through the forest, Tsukyun finds the spot where he met Mocha, but this time, another woman runs into him. Unlike Mocha, this lady isn't sweet and whacks Tsukyun off. Arriving at school, Tsukyun finds his group of girlfriends being worshipped by the freshmen. Yukari jumps at him, only for Kirumu to knock her down. Luckily, Shirayuki stops Kirumu before a quarrel ensues. Mocha shows up, and, of course, she and Tsukyun start cringe staring at each other again until she bites him. Soon, the school begins, and while checking their shoe lockers, Mocha gets buried under a bunch of love letters. However, one of them tells Mocha that she'll be killed tomorrow, making her freak out. Everyone uncomfortably chalks the letter up to be a prank, and Kirumu and Yukari go to recruit new members to the club. Meanwhile, their creepy club president, Jan, is busy peeping at freshman girls. Suddenly, he notices a mysterious girl, but she ends up kicking and breaking his lens. In school, Tsukyun and Mocha run into Ruby, who's working for the school director. That's when they find another threatening letter at the recruitment area. Even the girls notice a strange lady lurking around. Later, when Tsukyun and Mocha walk back to the dorms, they notice another letter attached to Tsukyun's back. Once he reads it, Mocha freaks out so much that she runs away. At night, Shirayuki notices the same strange girl looking around for someone's room. She immediately questions her. However, the girl tries to outsmart her and escapes Shirayuki's attacks. The next morning, Tsukyun greets a sleepless Mocha. Countless letters kept coming the entire night, making her seriously scared for her life. The group gathers to protect Mocha, and Shirayuki tells them about last night as well. Just then, a commotion breaks out. The mysterious girl has attacked two boys who were staring at her, and they start chasing her around in their true forms. Tsukyun's group realizes that they've all seen this strange woman, and Mocha becomes totally paralyzed with fear. However, the commotion worsens, and Tsukyun accidentally knocks into Mocha, pulling her Rosario off. Inner Mocha is then released and kicks the two, causing a blast of air to showcase the girl's secret underworld. Once everything settles, the strange girl shows up, saying she's Mocha's worst nightmare. To everyone's shock, she declares that the time has finally come to wipe her sister off the face of the earth. Mocha's sister, Kakoa, goes crazy and dive kicks at Mocha, only to go smashing through several trees. When Tsukyun saves Mocha, she's totally crazy and asks why Mocha isn't fighting back. Picking up a spare desk, Kakoa swings it wildly but accidentally hits Tsukyun, knocking him out. Just then, Mr. Katsubo shows up, asking why Kakoa is not in class. Ruby says that Kakoa's last name is Shuzan, which confuses everyone. Anyways, the group takes the knocked out Tsukyun to the infirmary. There, Mocha finally explains that she and Kakoa have different mothers, hence different last names. She remembers they fought every single day, and Kakoa never beat her once. One day, Mocha told Kakoa about her plans to leave and live with her mother in the human world. Upon hearing this, Kakoa vowed to hunt her down. Suddenly, Kakoa crashes through the window armed with a hammer, and everyone flees into the hall. Hiromu asks Mocha to do something, but she's too scared and runs away with Tsukyun, with Kakoa following them. Meanwhile, Mr. Katsubo and Miss Kiria ask Miss Nekonome to help them stop Kakoa, but they hear her running past outside. Finally catching up to Mocha, the maniac sister confronts her. Luckily, Yukari and Kirumu arrive dressed up as superheroes, only to get knocked down. Shirayuki, who's been hiding the whole time, gets super irritated and prepares to freeze Kakoa. However, Mocha begs them not to attack her sister. Just then, Jan and Ruby enter the scene, and Tsukyun is sure that Kakoa can't face them. Jan distracts Kakoa with a click, and everyone ends up hiding inside an equipment storage unit. Then, Mocha decides to face her sister alone and orders the others not to follow her. Mocha then confronts Kakoa outside the school grounds. However, seeing that Mocha isn't using her full strength, Kakoa becomes super angry and pins her down. She breaks down, asking Mocha why she won't fight like in the old days. Just then, Tsukyun and the others show up, realizing that Kakoa was simply missing Mocha. She apologizes to Kakoa, but that isn't why Kakoa is going all out. She almost kills Tsukyun and Mocha, but luckily, Inner Mocha shows up and tells Kakoa that she'll knock out anyone who threatens them. She then kicks Kakoa away, but Kakoa picks herself up and begins growling. Suddenly, she rushes over to hug Inner Mocha, confusing everyone. Kakoa then explains that she wanted to get rid of the fake sister and see the one who left her. Inner Mocha just seals herself, saying she isn't the same person anymore. Tsukyun then carries Mocha to the nurse's office and wonders where the sweet Mocha came from, only to get bitten. Soon, it's Parents' Day, and Tsukyun tells two fellow students that his parents wouldn't attend. Later in class, Mocha and Tsukyun find Seizu all grumpy. However, the dude turns into a total wimp once his parents show up. Anyways, Mocha says that neither of her parents came all the previous years, so it's unlikely they will. She just plans to spend the day with Kakoa but changes her mind when Kakoa bursts in and attacks Tsukyun. Later, while Mocha tends to Tsukyun's injury, Shirayuki introduces Tsukyun to her mother, Tsurara Shirayuki. They are not much different, and Shirayuki even told her that Tsukyun is her boyfriend. She even asks Tsukyun to play along, but the situation gets complicated when Kirumu arrives with her mother, Eijaha Kurono, and reveals that she's introduced Tsukyun as her fiancé. Her mother totally smothers the poor guy with her attentions. Soon, Yukari walks in with her parents as well, and Ruby is excited to see adult witches. Anyways, the class begins, and for some reason, Eijaha and Sarah seem to have some beef between them. The two purposely bump and trip each other. It turns out both of them want their girls to settle down their love lives, and even Shirayuki and Kirumu get into a fight. Later on, the two are taken out of class by their mothers. Ageha aggressively asks Kirumu how far she had gone with Tsukyun and tells her to save the relationship by literally making love to him. Meanwhile, Sarah goes a step ahead and tells Shirayuki to freeze him. So, Shirayuki lures Tsukyun into the woods and freezes him. However, he is rescued thanks to Yukari. But it doesn't stop the chaos, and Kirumu starts grinding against Tsukyun, trying to seduce him. As expected, the mother wars continue through the classes, and even in music class, both Kirumu and Shirayuki sing songs to Tsukyun professing their love. Then, at lunch, both mothers end up arguing over Tsukyun's future wedding so much that they literally destroy the cafeteria. However, Tsukyun realizes that Sarah and Ageha are fighting over him because he resembles a boy named Gonzo that they had fought over during their youth in Yakai Academy. Sadly, Sarah and Ageha's attacks make Tsukyun accidentally remove Mocha's Rosario, releasing inner Mocha. She then tells the two mothers to drop it, making them attack her. Tsukyun ends up wedged between Sarah and Ageha's talents, and both women, in their creepy state, yell in unison, telling Tsukyun he can date them instead. Thankfully, Yukari's parents fix the cafeteria, and soon, Parents' Day comes to an end. The two mothers then apologize, just as Seizo shows up with his parents. Hearing Seizo's last name, the two women realize that Gonzo is actually Seizo's dad, and now the dude looks like a dumpling. They collapse and ask their daughters not to give up on Tsukyun. One day, Yukari is walking to school and says hello to Tsukyun, but he ignores her and greets Mocha instead. Poor Yukari gets all sad and decides to win Tsukyun's heart. Later on, while peeping at the couple, Yukari gets jealous of Kirumu's talents. She sadly checks out her height in the nurse's office when suddenly the nurse, Mako Yakumaru, claims she can grant Yukari's wish to age. Yukari wakes up later feeling odd and walks back to her dorm, overhearing boys praise her in class. No one recognizes her until she intervenes in a fight. That's when she looks at her reflection and is shocked to see a teenage girl's body. In the nurse's room, Mako asks how Yukari likes being older, and she happily thanks her. The girl even teases Mocha. However, after getting a new uniform, Yukari leaves her jacket and opts for a yellow ribbon, ditching her hat and cape to appear more appealing. The tiny witch has turned into a teenager. Later, she bumps into Tsukyun and apologizes with a cute pose, mimicking Kirumu. Yukari tries to impress the useless dude, but he just runs away embarrassed. Anyways, Yukari continues to navigate her new appearance. The next day, Miss Nekonome announces a body measuring session. The following day, Yukari goes to the gym for measurements while boys watch from the school roof, admiring Yukari and Mocha's beauty, which makes Kirumu jealous. Ruby, also in the gym, is surprised by Yukari's change. She measures Mocha and realizes that her talents are far bigger than she thought. However, once it's Yukari's turn, she is massively shocked at her size. During the height measurement, Yukari feels jealous of Kirumu and follows Mako to the bathroom, pretending she needs to go. Arriving at the nurse's office, Yukari asks Mako for help once more, but Mako admits she's been making Yukari feel bad on purpose to get energy from her negative feelings. Feeling upset and ready to argue, Yukari gets surprised when Mako tells her that if she beats her, Yukari will become young again. Mako then takes away Yukari's wand and puts her to sleep to use her bad feelings. While sleeping, Yukari realizes she's not as mature inside as she looks outside. When she wakes up, her friends are there, and Mako is gone. They go back to get measured, but Yukari turns back into a kid like Mako said she would. Everyone is surprised, but Yukari is okay with it because she's grown a little physically with the measures done. Everyone leaves, and Hamu thinks Yukari did some kind of magic, but Yukari says she's fine the way she is and knows she still has a lot to grow emotionally. She then sees Tuscan and steals a kiss. Then one day in her dorm room, Shirayuki struggles to cook curry, finding it difficult. When the curry overflows and burns her hand, she screams, waking up other students. Shirayuki's hair turns to ice and she collapses. However, she looks at a picture of Toucan on her calendar and finds the courage to continue trying. The next day, Tsukyun works in shop class while the girls cook. He daydreams about Mocha offering him food from her special menu, only to wake up and realize that Seizu destroyed the whole table. In cooking class, Miss Apsara announces they'll make curry. Shirayuki adds love potions to hers. Tsukyun makes a spicy version, and Yukari makes a healthy one. However, Miss Apsara adds too much spice to Yukari's curry, making the poor girl cry. Shirayuki gets angry seeing Mocha cook because she thinks it's against the vampire pride. When Shirayuki catches her, she rejoins the cooking class. Afterwards, the girls give their curry to the boys. Shirayuki's curry is frozen solid, and she even freezes other people when they mock her. Meanwhile, Miss Apsara thaws Shirayuki out, only to insult Curry, seriously ticking her off. Elsewhere, Shirayuki is feeling hopeless but remembers Mocha's advice to keep trying. She tries cooking again following Ruby's advice, and after some mishaps, she finally makes good curry. The next day, Tsukyun, Mocha, Kirumu, and Yukari wonder where Shirayuki is. They decide to visit her at the dorms after class. Suddenly, Kakoa calls for Mocha, and they see her at the classroom entrance holding curry plates, with her skin totally yellow. Kakoa has turned into a curry-fueled zombie in the school. The boys discuss being frozen by Shirayuki the other day when they strangely find curry coming out of everywhere in the school. The whole school then throws a curry fair, not knowing that Miss Apsara is behind the spicy mess. Meanwhile, Shirayuki walks to school with her curry and finds students with yellow skin in the courtyard. One of them tries attacking her, but she freezes the idiot and finds her friends eating the curry as well. Hearing laughter, Shirayuki sees Miss Apsara spreading a yellow cloud and revealing her true form. Miss Apsara explains her plan to make everyone taste real curry. Tsukyun, who's now a curry zombie, asks for Shirayuki's ice curry, breaking Miss Apsara's spell. Shirayuki's shaved ice curry brings his taste buds back to life. Miss Apsara tries to force Tsukyun to eat her curry, but Shirayuki's shaved ice curry wins him over. Miss Apsara angrily attacks with curry plates, but Shirayuki freezes them as well. She then sends a giant plate at her which Shirayuki can't fully freeze. However, just then, Mocha saves Tsukyun and knocks down Miss Apsara's curry plate before sending her flying. Finally, Tsukyun shares Shirayuki's curry and frees everyone from the spell. Once the chaos ends, Kirumu suspects that Shirayuki used her magic, but she denies it, saying she cooked her curry for Tsukyun with love. One day, members of a street gang called Monsters Industries gather at the docks, led by Goblin of Tosa. They express gratitude for each other's help and plan to conquer another gang's territory to expand their dominance. Meanwhile, Tsukyun's group is on a field trip to the human world. Ruby unexpectedly becomes their tour guide, with poor Shirayuki desperately cycling behind the group. They stop at various places and eventually end up at a shrine. Mocha tries to spend time with Tsukyun, but he's busy with other girls. However, they spot Sea Monk eating fish from a pond, which is weird. Outside, Shirayuki finally arrives on her bike but gets hit by a bus. Meanwhile, the group shops for souvenirs, and Mocha considers buying a charm for love and marriage. She gets insulted by some aggressive guys, but her charm disarms them. However, bosses from Monsters Industries notice Mocha's Yakai Academy uniform. As evening falls, the class reaches their hotel. Kirumu and Shirayuki try to spend time alone with Tsukyun, but Yukari intervenes. Mocha continues to feel bad. Later, Mocha and Kakoa end up chasing each other through the hotel, causing a commotion. Once everyone falls asleep, Mocha sneaks out, followed by Kirumu, Shirayuki, and Yukari. Mocha expresses her desire to spend time with Tsukyun during the trip, feeling uncertain if it's selfish. Tsukyun reassures her, confessing he also wants to be with her. Before they can have a romantic moment, Sea Monk interrupts them and abducts Tsukyun. Despite Mocha's attempt to rescue him, Zashiki Rashi intervenes. Luckily, Kirumu and the others arrive just in time. The Wraith warns them to find Tsukyun if they want him back and launches a fire attack, which Shirayuki blocks. As dawn breaks, Tsukyun worries about catching a cold when suddenly the girls arrive to save him, dressed in makeshift hero outfits. They realize that Monsters Industries kidnapped Tsukyun to eliminate Yakai and see his power, so the girls prepare to face off against the bosses. Kirumu faces the Sea Monk while Yukari handles the ghost brat and gets buried under pillows, but manages to fight back. On the other hand, Shirayuki confronts the Wraith, matching his fire with ice and freezing him solid. However, Mocha struggles against the goblin until she uses a hidden weapon to defeat him. She enters with her own drama, but everyone ignores her. Kakoa angrily attempts to attack, but Mocha easily flicks her off and scares off Monster Industries before sealing herself again back on the tour. Kirumu, Yukari, and Shirayuki realize that Tsukyun and Mocha are missing. Meanwhile, Tsukyun and Mocha find themselves confronted by Monster Industries once more, but this time they are not in the mood to fight. Instead, they declare Mocha their new leader. Mocha nervously clings to Tsukyun. One day, Tsukyun surprisingly shows up at his home. Tsukyun's mom notices that he seems grown up. Suddenly, another doorbell rings and Tsukyun asks what's happening. His mom explains that a beautiful girl is looking for him. To Tsukyun's surprise, it's Mocha, who apologizes for arriving unexpectedly. As Tsukyun's mom tries to calm down, thinking Mocha is Tsukyun's girlfriend, Tsukyun gives Mocha a tour of the house. He feels embarrassed as Mocha explores his room. Mocha then explains that she thought if Tsukyun went home, he might decide to stay, which is why she showed up. Weirdly, they both fall onto Tsukyun's bed and almost kiss when Tsukyun finds Kiramu, the creepy lady, hiding under the sheets, not realizing Mocha is there. Kiramu tries to get Tsukyun to make a move, but realizes that Mocha and Shirayuki are also present. Just then, Yukari ends up joining them, and a fight breaks out over Tsukyun just as his mother arrives and faints from shock. When Kasumi wakes up, she asks Tsukyun if he's sleeping with the girls. Tsukyun desperately clarifies that they're just friends, surprising the girls, each of whom considers herself his girlfriend. Mocha realizes Tsukyun hasn't even told his parents about them or Yakai Academy and feels sorry for putting him in an awkward situation. The girls then apologize for showing up. Meanwhile, Kakoa races on her bicycle towards Tsukyun's home. Later, Tsukyun tries to take a shower but is interrupted by Kiramu. However, Shirayuki interrupts, freezing Kiramu's feet, only for Yukari to pull on Tsukyun's towel, giving him a massive shock. Tsukyun and Yukari rush to stop Kiramu and Shirayuki from fighting, only for Tsukyun's mom to find her son and faint again. Later on, Tsukyun's cousin, Kyoko, visits and sees a chaotic scene at his home. She scolds Tsukyun and his friends for upsetting his mother, leading to an argument about who is Tsukyun's real girlfriend. Kyoko proposes a competition to determine who loves Tsukyun the most. Each girl tries to prove her love for Tsukyun but fails. Kiramu defends herself, saying she can satisfy Tsukyun with her talents, but Yukari interrupts, saying she is willing to have a relationship with Tsukyun. Mocha wants babies, and Mocha accidentally implies cats when all she did was just blood-sucking. Tsukyun's mom faints once again. Anyways, the girls decide to fight and head outside. Back at home, Mocha attends to Tsukyun's mom once she wakes up. Tsukyun's mom tells her that Tsukyun always talks to her about Mocha over calls. This makes Mocha happy, and she heads out to handle the crazy women outside. She impresses Tsukyun by showing off her skills before summoning her inner self and calming down her friends. Inner Mocha then tells Tsukyun that one day he'll have to make a decision and choose a partner from among them. The next day, Ruby cancels their school trip passes, and the girls argue over who is to blame. Meanwhile, back at home, Tsukyun's mom dismisses Kyoko, seeing the girl's power as a dream, and poor Kakoa arrives to find Tsukyun and company gone. One day, Ruby is seen introducing herself to the audience. She is then greeted by Tsukyun and wonders if they would ever become more than friends. Just then, Mocha arrives, greeting Tsukyun. This annoys Ruby a bit. However, Kiramu arrives as well, followed by Yukari and then Shirayuki. Poor Ruby finally snaps, making the girls greet her. She then calls the girls total creeps for wearing small skirts, making Mocha and Yukari protest until the idiotic duo, Kiramu and Shirayuki, prove Ruby right by flashing themselves and asking for Tsukyun's opinion. However, the girls then call Ruby's long skirt lame, making her snap even more and revealing herself to be the dress code monitor. She then announces a new skirt rule. Soon, Miss Nekonome overhears Kyoko's former minions talk about Ruby's new rule and goes shopping. However, she tries on outfits that annoy Ruby, who's working as the cashier. Ruby catches her and yanks on Nekonome's ears, making her rip the swimsuit. However, once Ruby has gone, Nekonome finds a school uniform and decides to try it on. Later, the girls notice that Jin is missing. He says he once lost his pride because of the security committee and accidentally drops photos he took of Ko and Deso in their spicy outfits. Jin then thanks Tsukyun and the others for defeating the committee but wonders why Tsukyun gets all the girls. Later on, Miss Ririko catches sight of Mocha and remembers her defeat. She takes Mocha hostage, only to be stopped by a feline superhero. She angrily slashes a hole in the hero suit, revealing flashy undies and realizing that it's Nekonome. Miss Ririko then runs off embarrassed, telling Ruby to not pick on her students. Later on, it's revealed Kakoa is screwed up by going to different locations for famous foods. Once she returns, Kakoa gets knocked over by the karate team. The redhead is totally embarrassed, realizing that she squished soup. Meanwhile, Mocha tells Tsukyun that he tastes fruity. It turns out Tsukyun was drinking milk to try and stop her, but she likes the taste. The poor guy then tries drinking a lot of vinegar, followed by several bottles of hot sauce and flavored water. In the end, he chugs down a ton of garlic and energy drinks. The next morning, Mocha greets him while he's working out, but the smell of his disgusting odor makes her run away. Later, Yukari finds a lost puppy out in the rain on her way to school. The little guy ends up tearing up the news club room, and Yukari then takes the puppy to Jin, but he angrily turns her away. However, Ruby soon returns as the dress monitor. She warns Kyoko's former minions about their short skirts, but when they insult her, Ruby threatens them with her ruler and shocks them. Jin, who watches the whole thing, doesn't like Ruby's rule because it affects his news gathering. He asks Ruby to stop it, offering a private photo session, and Ruby agrees. The next day, Ruby sees Tsukyun and the girls again, and they argue as always, really disliking the long skirts. Ruby thinks she did a good job when suddenly the wind blows and lifts everyone's skirts. Ruby gets mad at how they are still flashing around and totally loses it, tripping the girls. Tsukyun and the girls are surprised, and Ruby feels embarrassed and quickly hides herself. The poor girl starts crying, but Tsukyun calms her down. However, they are missing one very important thing, and Jin jumps out, snapping away. He bumps into Tsukyun, removing the Rosario and releasing Inner Mocha. Inner Mocha then knocks Jan out. However, just then, Kekoa shows up and chases her beloved Mocha down. Soon, Ruby walks with Yukari by the river and joins the news club, chatting happily. Later, she checks the barrier's rosary and meets with the director, discussing peace between monsters and humans. One day, Kekoa watches videos of her sister's fights, hoping to help her come back home. She notices that Tsukyun always takes off a special necklace and decides to get it herself, but finds Mocha's class empty. The group has actually gone on a skiing trip and is greeted by snow fairies at the resort. However, this is a setup at Yukari's home, and she and her mother have a sneaky plan to make Tsukyun give them a few babies. Ruby turns out to be their ski instructor, while Mocha and Tsukyun lovingly scream each other's names. Soon, the girls argue over who's going to ski with Tsukyun when suddenly, Shirayuki kidnaps Tsukyun, knocking poor Kekoa down the hill. Shirayuki returns to her home only to find the worthless brat missing. The dude ends up shivering, but luckily Mocha finds him. This time Kekoa emerges from the snow, planning on taking the rosary. However, she gets super mad over being unable to take it off thanks to her crazy screeching. An avalanche starts, which takes her and Tsukyun into a ravine. Back at the resort, Kirimu, Yukari, Ruby, and Miss Nekonom are enjoying the hot springs, only for freeze the warm waters. Just then, Yukari rushes in with Mocha, telling everyone that Tsukyun and Kekoa fell into a ravine. The flashback then shows Mocha and Kekoa fighting as usual, and Kekoa wakes up in a cave with Tsukyun. However, Kekoa decides to leave. Tsukyun runs after her and manages to make her stay when suddenly a roar startles them. Meanwhile, Mocha, Ruby, Kirimu, and Yukari head out to find Tsukyun. However, Mocha better find Tsukyun before the icy mother-daughter duo gets to him. She heads out with Ruby instead. Back in the cave, Tsukyun asks Kekoa why she hates him so much. Kekoa says it's because Mocha gives him everything. She goes mad before blacking out, and so Tsukyun decides to lie next to her to keep her warm. However, he wakes up to find the roaring has gotten close, and then suddenly a literal yeti enters the cave. But luckily, Shirayuki comes to rescue Tsukyun and then runs off with Kekoa to get her medical attention. But the yeti follows. Just then, Mocha shows up and Tsukyun immediately pulls her Rosario off. With Inner Mocha out, she kicks the yeti away. However, Kekoa sees her chance and tries to take the Rosario, but Inner Mocha says she will not let herself remain unsealed. With that, she seals herself away. Just then, Shirayuki realizes that the yeti is actually her father. Turns out the guy was looking for lost skis. Soon, everyone leaves with Shirayuki promising to marry Tsukyun next time. One day, Desiko Desi walks to school feeling down about things since Kuyo's defeat last year. Suddenly, she hears a beautiful voice and sees a new boy asking for directions to the faculty lounge. He says I love you in French, and Desiko instantly falls in love with him, swearing to be his servant forever. In class, Miss Nekonom introduces him as Kartaro, a new student. Shirayuki, Yukari, Mocha, and Kirimu murmur that they prefer the idiot Tsukyun over Kartaro. After class, Kuyo's ex-friends invite Kartaro to music class where he charms them with his Rizz, making them fall for him. Later at lunch, the news club debates article ideas when suddenly, Kartaro shows up and impresses Yukari by catching her when she trips. He weirdly calls her his little bunny and throws in an I love you as well. Yukari immediately falls for him, wondering why she's acting this way. Then, during PE, Kartaro goes for Shirayuki as she watches Tsukyun fail a jump. Kartaro appears, praising her smile and saying I love you to her as well. The girl, who doesn't even smile on a good day, starts grinning under his love spell. After PE, Mocha and Kirimu struggle to carry volleyballs. Kartaro ends up helping Kirimu, saying I love you, and the lady literally starts gushing over him. Mocha then questions Kartaro's intentions, but he puts her under his spell too. Soon, with all the girls drooling over him, Kartaro turns them all into his personal bodyguards, including Mocha, Yukari, and Shirayuki. Once Tsukyun realizes this, he desperately tries reaching them, but it's of no use. At the club, the useless human asks Jan for help, and he agrees to investigate. However, Kartaro ends up hypnotizing Jan as well and plans to take over the school. Kartaro's power grows so much that he even ends up controlling Ms. Nekonom, and the two start a massive concert. Tsukyun tries his best to stop him but gets beaten up until Kekoa shows up. She confronts Kartaro, but when he tries to enslave her as well, Mocha runs up to her. However, under Kartaro's spell, she is unable to do anything. Just then, Tsukyun decides to be of some use and jumps onto the two ladies and manages to pull off Mocha's Rosario. With inner Mocha out, Kartaro attempts to hypnotize her and Kakoa again. However, Kakoa reacts quickly, shoving his microphone into Kartaro's mouth, and Mocha then swiftly kicks him, sending Kartaro bouncing around like a pinball. The two then deliver a double kick to the creep's face, knocking him out and breaking the spell. Kakoa happily starts celebrating Mocha's freedom, but inner Mocha says it was outer Mocha who fought to save her sister. Later on, Kakoa reflects on outer Mocha's sacrifice while Mocha, as usual, drinks Tsukyun's blood, angering the newspaper club. One day, Kyoko arrives in the monster world carrying rice balls for Tsukyun that Kasumi has sent for him. She encounters Kakoa on her way, and they collide, switching their packages. Kakoa, with the rice balls now, rushes off with a plan to get her sister back. Meanwhile, Kyoko arrives at the Yakai Academy and observes Tsukyun and Mocha. However, her attention is diverted when Kirimu, Yukari, and others join in. Kyoko misunderstands the situation, believing the school might be training girls for the tray. That's when she opens the package to find a mirror instead of rice balls. Poor Kakoa discovers the mix-up. However, Kyoko investigates the mirror and a pixie named Lilith emerges from it. But Kyoko flees into the forest, feeling like she's on a prank show. Lilith then demonstrates the mirror's ability to reveal true monster forms, proving that Kyoko didn't just dream of the girls with powers. The little pixie then flies over to Kirimu and Yukari and exposes their true selves. Later, at the news club, Tsukyun and Mocha run into Ruby, who asks them to help her find a stolen artifact. However, before they can assist, Jin transforms into a werewolf and disrupts the room. Mocha manages to stop him, and Ruby asks if he looked into the mirror. The idiot says he'll answer if she lets him take pictures of her. Mocha just slams the dude, and Ruby explains Lilith's mirror. In the chaos it's causing, Tsukyun decides to locate the others, and Ruby receives news of a human girl with the mirror and gets worried for her safety. At the pool, poor Kyoko trembles in fear as she witnesses people transforming into monsters and begs Lilith to stop. But Lilith insists on fulfilling her wish to explore Yakai Academy. Just then, Kyoko runs into Myro in her monstrous form. Tsukyun then spots Lilith flying around and is relieved to find Kirimu still in her human form. However, Kirimu's behavior becomes crazy as she expresses her feelings for Tsukyun. Yukari and Shirayuki join the chaos, and Tsukyun realizes the mirror has unleashed their true selves, and he better save himself. Meanwhile, Miso prepares to attack Kyoko when suddenly Mocha shows up. Kyoko, initially frightened by Mocha, eventually accepts her. Kyoko then helps Mocha in recovering the mirror and shows it to her, releasing inner Mocha and defeating Myro and her allies. With the situation under control, inner Mocha and outer Mocha confront Lilith, who reveals her true identity and even splits the two Mochas. However, because of it, their powers split as well. Just then, Tsukyun shows up with the girls free of Lilith's spell. The group then blindfolds themselves and defeats Lilith for good. Poor Kakoa's involvement in the chaos is exposed, and Ruby takes her away for punishment. However, thanks to Lilith's chaos, the school's barrier is breaking apart. At the same time, Kasumi watches a TV show about severe weather when her house suddenly shakes. She rushes outside and is surprised to see Yakai Academy mirrored upside down in the sky. Back in the monster world, students gaze up in horror as the sky fractures. It is explained that the Great Barrier is collapsing due to Lilith's mirror. This revelation terrifies everyone, especially Kyoko, who fears being eaten by monsters. Mocha rushes to fix the barrier with the help of her friends. In the end, the poor vampire sacrifices her identity as outer Mocha to repair the barrier, leaving her permanently in her inner Mocha form. Despite this change, Mocha promises to reunite with Tsukyun. A month later, Kyoko returns safely to the human world, but some things at school remain different. In class, inner Mocha shows little interest and is always immersed in a magazine about combat. Tsukyun feels uneasy with the new Mocha as well, as he can no longer fulfill his fantasies. However, during gym class, Kirimu and Shirayuki flirt with Tsukyun when suddenly inner Mocha joins in, which is very unusual. The lady literally starts rubbing her talons, making Tsukyun totally confused. Later on, inner Mocha finds Tsukyun on the rooftop where they share a moment similar to how Tsukyun and the old Mocha used to. However, Tsukyun feels like cheating and stops. Inner Mocha then reveals to Tsukyun that the old Mocha was an illusion created by the rosary. Despite this, inner Mocha offers to feed on Tsukyun's blood, but their friends end up interrupting them. Shirayuki, Yukari, and Kirimu realize that they must cheer Tsukyun up, unaware that Kakoa is observing from afar and decides to keep an eye on Tsukyun. That evening, Ruby checks the Great Barrier and finds the replacement rosary intact. She informs the director, who appreciates Mocha's sacrifice. The director then tells her a secret, and Ruby discovers that both rosaries are identical. The next day at school, Miss Nekonome tells the class about a future past session. Sukyun calls home and learns about the storm caused by the barrier. Kasumi reassures him but says that Kyoko is really sad over hurting Mocha. Later, Ruby is sweeping by the gate when she sees Sukyun leaving and decides to follow him. He revisits the spot where he first met Mocha. Ruby overhears his grief and ends up sharing what she learned from the director that night. Sukyun remains gloomy, staring at Mocha's dark window from his dorm when suddenly Ruby throws a pebble at his window, revealing a plan to bring back outer Mocha. The following day, parents gather for the future past session with Sarah and Aja resuming their stupid quarrel. Yukari's mother intervenes, but chaos ensues as each mother asserts her daughter's claim to Sukyun. Yukari pleads for them to consider Tsukyun's feelings, initiating a ceasefire, but Aja and Sarah refuse to give up and declare themselves his future in-laws. Tsukyun heads to the northern barrier where the Dark Lord resides. A flashback reveals that the director is also one of the 3 Dark Lords who founded Yakai Academy, and the person who made the rosary for the Great Barrier made Mocha's rosary as well. As Tsukyun enters the tunnel, he promises to obtain a new rosary for Mocha. However, Keiko watches him from above and swears to never let this happen. Soon, Tsukyun reaches the northern barrier, seeking the castle of the Dark Lord who made Mocha's rosary. Suddenly, Kuyo and a group of bats attack him. Tsukyun scares off the bats and confronts Kuyo, determined to rescue outer Mocha. Keiko then decides to take matters into her own hands and steps forward, only to get interrupted by Sarah and her army of snow women. However, Tsukyun presses on, but Sarah stops him with her snow women. As usual, Sarah is determined to get Tsukyun married to her daughter, but Tsukyun objects. Shirayuki then supports him and wants to help Tsukyun bring back outer Mocha. Seeing this, Sarah angrily summons a snowstorm, but Yukari and her parents lend a helping hand. Yukari's mother unleashes a powerful spell, allowing Tsukyun to escape while Shirayuki confronts her mother. The love-struck idiot then manages to reach a bridge controlled from the other side, and here he runs into the other crazy mother, Miss Kurono. She attempts to marry him off to Kirimu, but thanks to Kirimu, he manages to escape once again, and Kirimu guides him to the bridge. Inside the castle, Keiko warns Tsukyun about their father, Issa, the Dark Lord. Despite that, Tsukyun proceeds determined to retrieve the rosary. Soon, he meets the man and requests the rosary, but Issa gives him the classic cold shoulder and attacks. Tsukyun stands firm, questioning Issa's hate towards humans. In response, Issa insults humans for their fear and hatred of monsters. Despite Tsukyun's declaration of love for Mocha, Issa strikes him down and calls his love an illusion. Hearing that, Tsukyun's eyes glow red with some strange power. Issa realizes that Mocha gave some of her blood to him. Tsukyun then tells Issa that he cares for both Mochas and doesn't want to be without either one. He charges at Issa and manages to land a punch to his face. Meanwhile, the bus driver hopes for a peaceful future between monsters and humans at Yakai Academy as Tsukyun and the girls dance into the evening. That's it for this video. Watch the following video and I'll catch you in the next one.